Hello there, you beautiful people. My name is Willow, and welcome back to Supreme Commander Forged Alliance Forever. Today, we're going to be casting a 4v4 played on Stella Mara's V8. We're going to go ahead and slow it down while we get into introducing our players. But before we do so, I would like to bring attention to my Patreon and to channel memberships. Just some news, and this isn't like a pity call or anything. I did recently lose my job, so I am going to any support that's given really helps me out. I'm looking for another job, and I'm gonna hopefully YouTube can be a bit of a stopgap to help while I find another one. And other than that, I'd like to say thank you all for joining me. You're beautiful. And let's get into some really good FAF gameplay. This is going to be a longer one, so grab a drink and get yourself some food and enjoy the show as we start off with introducing the northwesternmost player of Team 1, going first land by the name of America. And his... oh no, he went first air, not first land. Could see a bomber rush. And his ally, another green UEF, going first air, possibly a coordinated double cheese coming out. Love to see that, love to see that. Maybe not, but, you know, one can dream. His name is Patman, and he is, of course, rocking this position. Moving on to the center, we have ourselves a orange Cybern by the name of February, who is going first land and rocking it. Over to the far east for Team 1, we have ourselves a purple Cybern by the name of Bernie going first land. And then we can move on to Team 2 down here in the south. Starting in the southeast, we have ourselves a green Cybern going first air by the name of Seneca Boa. Then over to the west of him, we have a purple Cybern going first land by the name of Dave, because I'm not even going to try it. Oh, you know I will. Graypole? Grazebull? Something like that. Then we have ourselves a red Seraphim going first land, a channel supporter and a good player at that. He's gone first land as a red Seraphim. His name is Lieutenant General Fluffy, and he is rocking the middle position. And then in the far west, we have a channel supporter and one of the first channel members. His name is Thurnis Haley, and he is a Cyan Cybran. See, like what I did there? Change the emphasis, and he's gone first land. He's rocking this position. Let's talk about the map. There's about 10,000 reclaim spread all throughout it. I need to move stuff on my desk as we get the game 2+0. 10,000 reclaim around the map. It is spread out pretty evenly. Every player is going to get a little bit of reclaim, and that's going to help them jumpstart their economies. Every player should be going to the Navy. Let's look at the positions and see exactly what they do. There's 2 carry positions, arguably, for each team. The biggest carry position is the one held by Thurnis and by Bernie. These players get the most mass extractors as they also take the back cliff area up here on both sides. And then we have the secondary carry position, which is the central position. This player usually specs a little bit heavier into airplay, but they also generally get into the Navy, and they get more mass extractors than their allies to the west or east of them. Other than, of course, the main carry position. Then you have these 2 players down here on each side in their mirrored positions. They generally have the least mass extractors and will generally lose to the solo player in the Navy, but their entire goal is to try and play spoiler and try and take over the Navy and get into the game very hard. And they also generally go for a little bit of early air to try and help out. But in general, this map is very much so naval spam. We have 2 islands on either side of the map that are only accessible by drops or cliff building. Gonna have to keep an eye on who can control those. It's 3 mass extractors in the hydro. Doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're looking at players who only in total have 7 secure mass extractors, it can make a huge difference for these players. With all of that out of the way and the talking about the maps out of the way, let's just talk about some general channel stuff. While I'm currently unemployed, I'm going to be trying to make more FAF content and more content in general. There's going to be new stuff coming to the channel. If you all would like to support me, please possibly check out the Let's Plays that are going to be going up on the channel very soon. But it's all good if you don't, because I understand we all have our preferences, and some of you, most of you, only really like FAF, and that's okay. Until Sanctuary comes out, where you're going to have to learn how to like a second game. The mass extractor kind of I don't know quite what to call it. The mass extractor distribution this game is going a bit different than you normally see on Stella Maris, especially with Team 1 up here, with Patman taking one of the mexes that is traditionally going to be going over to February, but February doesn't seem to care. He's actually going to be taking 2 of those mexes. We'll have to see if there's an argument about it or not. The back cliff area is usually contested. Sometimes the player in the center tries to take it, but in general, from what I understand, the player on the solo side of the map generally takes this. It does help them out quite a bit and helps them win Navy. And overall, these players just getting into it. We have our first few naval units about to come out onto the board. A submarine about to finish up for Lieutenant General Fluffy. Engineers being built out of the factory over here for Dave. We have a submarine already finishing up for Bernie, and we have naval factories going up en masse for Thurnis Haley. Up in this northern side, we have multiple factories going up for both of the players over here. The only player I'm seeing right now not getting invested into the Navy is going to be Seneca Boa, and that could be a big problem. If you don't have all 4 players committing to Navy, you can very much so lose the Navy on this map, and it makes it a lot harder to go about winning the match if you can't get naval control, or at least hold your own and stop them from bombarding you from the sea. The 2 first submarines out from both February and Lieutenant General Fluffy seemingly going to meet up over here in the center of the map, very close to February's factory. They both fire their missiles at the same time, which means that these subs are going to kill each other. We can see the submarine battle go down between these 2 units. It's going to be a mutually assured destruction kind of situation here, as the Siren goes down first, but he fires enough torpedoes to kill off the Seraphim, and that's going to be the end of that engagement. Going to have to see if anything else comes from it. There's already a frigate out for Lieutenant General Fluffy, so if February doesn't get any support, maybe he'll be able to deal with it. He will have a submarine to deal with it, but he only has 1 factory to the 3 factories of Fluffy. Fluffy going much heavier than February into the naval game. And on top of that, Fluffy having slightly more mass extractors kind of just means that February is going to have a bit of struggles with this. The frigate already getting out and already going to be killing off this mass extractor, which I'm sure has paid itself off by now. But this is really annoying, and until he can deal with this frigate, there's no real point in re-queuing these up, because the frigate's just going to go around and deal with all of it. The cliff kind of helping him keep his build power secure, at least. That engineer not going to die. But another mech's going to go down. Multiple mechs is dying very early. They're going to pay themselves off, but that's just 1 or 2 extra mass that you don't get per second. Each mass extractor giving you those 2 mass a second is important. 4 mass a second is enough to run one of the non-naval factories. So gonna have to keep an eye on that is February, and needs to start responding to this. Thurnis Haley getting a bit of a jump in the naval game, has 3 submarines and 2 frigates over on this western side. His opponents have more than that in total, but the 3 submarines will definitely beat the 2 submarines. It seems as though Patman not interested in building submarines just yet, going pure frigate, which might come back to bite him in the ass. Submarines very good at getting naval control, and you don't usually see a heavy spam on them, but it can work from time to time. February now coming out, trying to fight off the navy of Fluffy, but just has 2 subs to a bunch of frigates and a sub of Fluffy. Fluffy's production going quite well for himself. Fluffy and Thurnis having the most naval units out on the map and trying to provide pressure. Over here, the island does seem to be held pretty distinctly by America. I think there was probably a drop earlier, may even still have the transport sitting around. He does, of where he was trying to get that Thurnis, but he just wasn't quite able to, and there has been a drop for this island now out from Seneca Boa. So the map kind of separating along even territories. It's about this is the line of skirmish. There's a lot of units now pouring out of the base of Thurnis Haley. These units going to be very effective. He does need to be careful. His opponents are definitely focusing very heavily on keeping themselves in the naval game, so does need to be a bit careful. Patman getting a ton of mass extractors around the map. Patman possibly having the most mass extractors on his team. As we look at Reclaim really quick, there is a distinct look of Thurnis Haley and Lieutenant General Fluffy, along with Seneca Boa, doing kind of the best. Team 1 kind of lagging behind economically. Overall, on mass generation, Lieutenant General Fluffy, Thurnis Haley, Patman, and Bernie are the top 4 players. Seems Lieutenant General Fluffy and Thurnis Haley, who are buddies and are probably exclusively in a call while playing this match. They've played this map quite a bit. Gonna have to see if that experience comes in handy for them as this goes on. And we're gonna switch it back to sorting by team. And overall, just going to be a bit of a slower opening. We didn't have any cheese or any bombers coming out to provide harassment. There's a jester out from Seneca Boa trying to pick off a mass extractor, dodging the frigate anti-air quite well. Frigates, I believe, generally can deal with jesters pretty easily. If you micro the jester, though, it works a little bit better. Interceptors come in after a singular mass extractor does go down. Gonna have to get another engineer out to this island to claim that mass extractor is Bernie. Over here in the west, a large naval engagement, the first of its kind. This match is kicking off between Thurnus Haley, Patman, and America. Seems as though Thurnus is getting slightly the better of this. He has more submarines in the area, and he's definitely taking out these Thunderhead class frigates quite quickly. The Trident is admittedly the best frigate, and Thunderheads, while they are nice and while the UEF does generally have a strong navy, it's not going to be quite enough to deal with this Trident and what's the sliver? Trident and sliver spam being quite effective now for Thurnus Haley as he gains some territory and gets almost a full naval win. Lieutenant General Fluffy also doing quite well in the Navy. He's managed to kill off the first naval factory that was built up by February. February now getting a large naval production, almost all of the naval production except for the 3 factories out from Bernie. All of it up here in this northwest corner, meaning that this area is going to be a little bit harder to take than I think would be the norm. Usually you see both February and Lieutenant General Fluffy, they build their factories over here on the eastern side or on the side where they have weaker players, and I guess that is what February has eventually done to try and help out these 2 players that have stunted economies in comparison to what Bernie should have. But overall, Bernie not taking the cliff means that Thurnus Haley is going to have a very strong economy in comparison to his mirror matchup. So going to be very interesting. Thunderheads and Tridents duking it out over here. Thurnus being very aggressive. He's created a large mass field and he's managed to drop a couple of engineers over here. Needs to protect the engineers from these frigates and from these submarines. Needs to make sure he keeps them alive. This reclaim going to become very important. We'll have to check in on it whenever we have a little bit of a lull to just see who's doing better on reclaim. Both engineers do end up going down. I'm sure he managed to grab a little bit, but now a mass field of about 3,000 already stacking up here, and it's only going to grow as these players continue to fight. We now have torpedo bombers out from February trying to get some of this pressure being asserted by Thurnus Haley off of the field, trying to slowly whittle down his navy with torpedo bombers, but I'm not entirely sure how well this is going to work. Both Thurnus Haley and Lieutenant General Fluffy reacting to that with their own anti-air, and it seems that the anti-air from the frigates themselves and the destroyer in combination have managed to take down that singular torp bomber. More torp bomber is going to be building up now for February, but February's production is now under threat. He does have Patman showing up to try and help him out with the defense against the mass frigate spam, and now out from Lieutenant General Fluffy. Fluffy and Thurnus working together, trying to make a concerted effort to shut down this naval production out from Team 1 on the western side. On the eastern side, it seems as though Bernie is getting himself quite a strong position, though. There's not nearly as much navy out on the field on this eastern side, but we do have T2 now achieved by Dave, who's going to be sending some destroyers up forward and try to put pressure on Bernie's T1, primarily T1 force, but he's going to get his own destroyer out very soon. He has stealth and torpedo on the comm. That is going to be a dangerous combination. He's going to be able to get in here and start dealing some damage, but does need to be careful, does leave you quite vulnerable to certain types of attack. Needs to make sure he doesn't lose the comm needlessly. The comm going to continue to fire onto these frigates. Seems Lieutenant General Fluffy has noticed that. He's pinged it out, and he's going to start sending his frigates back as he tries to keep his stuff alive. These frigates probably going to be forfeit. A couple of them most likely going down as ranks of veterancy are going to start stacking up on that comm, making it a little bit more beefy If he ever gets cloaking, that will be a huge issue now for Team 2, because getting Omni in water is quite difficult to do. You only really have T3 scout planes that can do it, and the range is not that great. So they're going to need to be playing this a little bit careful with that comm. It's going to be a dangerous force to be reckoned with for a while, but if you get 2 or 3 destroyers on him, it's going to be game over if they can fire on him. Those destroyers going to have very good torpedo damage. A wave of torpedo bombers and a wave of frigates now coming out from Patman and February. Going to be trying to kill off a destroyer. I think it would have been better to target down the cruiser, but the destroyer are going to be brought down to about half HP, a little bit below it, as these units continue to just batter on each other, just constantly throwing shells and fighting, creating a huge mass field. These players not afraid to fight, not afraid to throw their units into the fray, and I'm loving it as these cinematic battles start to happen and these units start to get engaged with each other. Thurnus kind of fighting alone, though. It does seem as though he doesn't have much support, whereas he's fighting the economy and the navies of 3 different players. He's doing quite well for himself. He does have most likely the strongest economy in the game, and while we look at it, we can go ahead and look at Reclaim. Thurnus doing the best at 5.5 thousand. February and Patman have caught up to Lieutenant General Fluffy and surpassed him, so that's at least changed a little bit. Overall economies, Lieutenant General Fluffy, Seneca Boa, Bernie, and Thurnus Haley are top 4 players. Lieutenant General Fluffy ahead of the pack by a decent margin. He's ecoing very well. Needs to make sure that he doesn't fall behind on unit production while doing this, but he's a very good player, so I expect him to be able to handle this just fine. Destroyers now coming out for Patman to try and shut down the aggression and the tech rush out from Thurnus Haley. The frigate amount is kind of dwindling for Thurnus, and Thurnus is going to be forced back a little bit as some destroyers are finally showing up to help him out. Some Salem's out from Dave to try and help him. As over here to the east, Bernie now under threat. Now a destroyer firing on the comm of Bernie, going to be a danger. Also a T1 torpedo launcher, a Scuttle out from Seneca Boa, going to be putting some damage into that comm along with these destroyers. The destroyers have such great damage output and so much health that the comm cannot very efficiently trade unless it gets ranks of veterancy. If Bernie manages to kill off one of these destroyers, he definitely has a rank of veterancy coming his way, I think. No, he's very close. He's very close to another rank of veterancy, or maybe he did he did just get a rank of veterancy. And he's about to get another, but those ranks of veterancy, you only get 5 of them. There's only 5 of them that can save you. Bernie going to have to fall back. His forces now showing up to protect him. I'm trying to play safe with that. Does need to be a little bit wary as far as that is concerned. Over here to the west, it seems as though Dave and Thurnus Haley are going to continue to fight this out. We have a mermaid on the field, which is going to be a issue for Team 1, going to make it a little bit more difficult, but as the frigates come into vision range, that mermaid is a lot less useful. Another drop for reclaim over here, and a lot of engineers out here reclaiming. Overall, that's affecting the reclaim heavily as February and Patman take the lead by a significant margin. Patman now at the same reclaim as Thurnus Haley, who's been ahead all game, and February surpassing both of them. And overall, that's going to mean that these players are going to be getting a new lease on life, going to be able to get a lot of reclaim out onto the field, and possibly we might, as I said earlier, see Team 1 playing spoiler, have these 2 players overtake Thurnus Haley. I've played this map with him a lot, and Thurnus Haley is very good at establishing and maintaining naval control on whichever side he's playing as long as he's in this position. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how he plays from behind. I want to see if he changes up his strategy anyway, or if he just continues to invest fully into the spam of T2 Navy. He usually stays on T2 for quite a long while, and eventually he does transition to T3. I would even like to see if he has like a backup plan. Maybe he has some kind of harms spam idea going on. If he can get to T3 pretty early, he could spam up harms, create his own mass field if they ever attack into him. Over here, there's torpedo bombers now trying to bomb the cruiser, I believe, or maybe it's going for a destroyer. It seems like they were just targeted on everything, which means they will kill nothing. And even if they did kill this, it's right in range for Lieutenant General Fluffy to get one of these T1 factories, building himself engineers to reclaim. Another torpedo bomber going to come out, going to die before even dropping a payload. Mass Jester over here out from Seneca Boa. I guess Mass is a I guess it's a fickle term, but 5 Jesters seems like a large investment, and it's going to be shot down relatively easily. Bernie now up to 3 Vet, still trying to use that comm aggressively, still trying to get things done, but does need to be wary. There's probably T2 Air achieved by somebody. Yes, Seneca Boa sitting on T2 Air. Could see mass torpedo bomber snipe, and there's very little you can do about it. Your cruisers aren't going to kill the torpedoes before they drop. They'll kill 1 or 2, and especially being the Cybern cruiser, it's only got the single direct fire, not any flak. So he does still need to be careful. The stealth, I'm sure, is helping him out quite a bit, but anytime the units get close to his comm, it's going to make it a lot harder for him to stay safe and stay alive. He has a decent air control right now, bringing out his own Jesters and Corsairs to try and help him gain some leverage over on this eastern side, help him get an advantage and push back the units of Team 2. Team 1 getting a lot more naval control. It was looking really bleak in the first 10 minutes, first 15 minutes, but gaining a lot of territory and doing quite a lot better as of now. Overall, it seems as though they've recovered. It seems there's still some trouble for February. He's not quite able to keep his exterior mass extractors alive. Was there a TAC missile or anything doing that? No, it doesn't seem so. It doesn't seem like we've seen any TAC missiles. Tactical missile defense going up for many players right now. You need that tactical missile defense in order to stop TAC missiles from primarily the central player. The central player can get some very juicy hits off with those. Over here on the western side, Thurnis is still trying to get some ground back, but the torpedo bomber spam is, while not necessarily getting a lot of kills, and it does seem as though that this cruiser might be going down, it's weakening these ships. These ships aren't able to fight at their full capacity because they've been weakened down by the torpedo bombers, meaning that the T2 ships out from Team 1 are going to be much more effective as they're fighting with full health versus almost no health. So the torpedo bomber is still doing somewhat effectively. The comm for Bernie is sitting over here with 7.5 thousand mass killed, 18 kills. 18 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're killing naval units, that's a huge amount of mass. And in general, doing quite well for himself. 4 ranks of vet, probably going to even get a 5th rank before this is all said and done. And overall, the balance of the game going pretty well. The one spot that's a little bit dangerous right now for Team 1 is Team 2. If you just sort by pure economy, every single player on Team 2 is ahead of every single player on Team 1. Team 1 is getting access to these large reclaim fields and, in fact, is doing quite well in the reclaim game, but not transferring that into mass extractors, transferring that into more units. It can be a valid strategy if you start getting meaningful damage done, but overall, it doesn't feel like there's much damage going on economically. You're killing off a few T1 mexes, but you're not getting anything major for all of this investment you have into naval units, and you're not really breaking Thurnis over on this western flank. You're not breaking the eastern flank either. You're just kind of struggling at this point, and as all of the units for Team 2 kind of converge to this western side to try and fight off Patman and February and the spam that's now coming out from America, it's going to be a bit more difficult for Team 1 to continue to get gains from this. If they can continue to secure the mass fields that are being created, that's going to be nice. There's a lot of engineers in the force of Thurnis Haley just reclaiming things as soon as they die. It's going to be interesting to see if he can maintain this level of production. He needs to keep up with his opponents. Seems as though he has a ton of assistance on his T2 factory. I wonder how his economy is balanced. How much of a stall is he in? He's actually positive, so he's producing about as quickly as he physically can. So this is going very well for him. I think he is a little bit reliant on reclaim, though, as his engineers are constantly reclaiming, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. You just, eventually you can run out of reclaim. You don't run out of mass extractors as long as they don't die. Torpedo bombers coming in yet again, another pass, going to continue to try and deal damage to the forces of Thurnis Haley, and a lot of torpedo bombers now starting to come out for Lieutenant General Fluffy, who's invested quite heavily into the air, has a ton of interceptors. As T3 Air has been finished up for February, he's probably going to get his T3 power starting soon. T3 Air also finished up now for Lieutenant General Fluffy. So the air game has reached its conclusion, T3 air, but Seneca Boa being also at T3 air is going to make Team 1 worry a little bit. It might mean that the air game is going to go very heavily inside for the side of Team 2. Seneca Boa is just ecoed like a madman, sitting on quite a huge economy. I think he's even the highest economy player. Gonna have to keep an eye on him. If he can manage to transition into something big, that'd be amazing. But Seneca Boa decides to control K, so his base is gonna go to somebody else, most likely gonna be going to either Thurnis Haley or Lieutenant General Fluffy. Goes to Lieutenant General Fluffy, so that's going to be an interesting situation now. Lieutenant General Fluffy, a higher rated player, possibly could argue he's gonna do a lot better, but that Control K just comes out of nowhere. A lot of the build power over here is going to die, but it seems there's Hives to kind of help out with that issue. And we're going to see a lot going on over here. We could see a lot of air focus out from Lieutenant General Fluffy now. Or we could even see him just try and transition to something else, because he has the strongest economy of the game. Going over 300 mass a second in less than 30 minutes is huge. We could even see something like an air experimental, or if he wants to feel really spicy, build an experimental in the water. You could get a... Well, I mean, I don't even know if building an experimental in the water would be worth it. The only way it could come onto land is over here. Maybe get a megalith and just start plowing through your opponents, or if you can get some Aeon tech, which I don't believe they have access to. No, they don't. I was going to say a Tempest. Don't even have a UEF tech for the Atlantis, so I think experimentals are kind of out of the picture here, except for the Owasso or Soul Ripper. And overall, these players continuing to duke it out. Thurnis has managed to buy himself a little bit more breathing room. He's no longer confined to just his main island. He had a lot of trouble where they were almost at his production lines earlier. So these players still holding on, still a very even match. Overall economies, though, Team 2 damn near doubling the overall economy of Team 1. Team 1 only 2,000 mass ahead. Total mass generation over 100,000 in favor of Team 2. Team 2 is currently so far ahead on eco that if Thurnis, Haley, and Fluffy and Dave here can just continue to stabilize, continue to play this little bit defensive for a little bit longer, it's going to be very difficult for Team 1 to deal with. Team 1 really needs to focus on economy. Patman holding so many mass extractors and having none at T3 is a huge issue. He's only just now even capping mexes, while everybody else on the map seemingly going to T3 is gonna be a bit of an issue. He has the most mass extractors. He should have the most mass. I'm pretty sure out of every player on the map, he has the most mass extractors, including Thurnis Haley. Maybe not Fluffy anymore, but still. Bernie now walking onto land with his torpedo comm, which is a weird flex, but okay. Need to walk back into the water. He's going to continue to fight with this comm. This could be dangerous, but torpedo bomber is going to come in. He's going to continue to throw those torpedoes out from the commander, possibly even get another rank of veterancy and be 5 vet on this Cybran Rambo naval comm. On the western side, a constant fight being held by Thurnis Haley and Lieutenant General Fluffy and Dave. Just units being thrown at each other constantly. I don't even know if Lieutenant General Fluffy has any units over here, actually. Nope, he just has reclaiming engineers. So Thurnis Haley and Dave going to be fighting very hard, and I'm honestly surprised, and kudos to Patman and America for both focusing so hard on Navy. I've never seen Thurnis be this much of a struggle to be fighting off the Navy of the two players over here. He normally crushes it, so this is a very impressive game out of these two players. Over here, Bernie is pushing forward with the comm and all of his Navy, but that's a ton of torpedo bombers. This could have just been a snipe if he had vision. It still could be. That's enough torpedo bombers just to kill off Bernie and tax the APM of February. I don't know if Fluffy is going to opt for that, because killing off a comm does give a large economy to everybody else, and I'm pretty sure he's happy with being the highest economy player in the game. Don't think he wants to mess with that too terribly much. Over here in the west, there is a large naval fight going on, and Thurnis is just slowly losing this Navy. He's petering out. He just doesn't have many units left, and while he may have just as many T2 units as his enemy, he doesn't have the T1 spam anymore. He's getting up more factories to try and rectify that issue. But without help from his ally Dave over here, he's definitely being knocked out. And even with help, he's just kind of behind. There's 3 players with a decent-sized navy, and he's got enough to fight one of those, but not all 3. And Thurnus might be getting forced out of the navy this game, which would be an interesting situation. As I said, I'd like to see if he's realizing just how far he's down. I would think he would know. Yeah, you aren't just going to be able to outproduce this, I don't believe. So is Thurnus going to be able to get his comm somewhere safe or to build some kind of defense against this? Because I think he's going to run out of units very soon. The units out from Dave coming over here, they're nudging themselves in between the production and the units out from Patman, just trying everything to hold a defensive line against the units of Patman in America. There's even some destroyers out from February to help, and now another wave of torpedo bombers coming in. Where is the air? Where's the ASF for Fluffy? I think Fluffy could be helping out a lot more right now with the air. If he just stopped the torpedo bomber passes, I think he'd have a lot better situation for Thurnus Haley. But Thurnus is gonna be forced out of the navy. There's no way he defends this, especially with these torpedo bombers getting multiple passes out for February. I think that this is just gonna be a situation where Thurnus cannot hold. And as we're having so much talk about Thurnus, later on this week, there's going to be a replay review. As he is a channel member, he does have access to that. So if you do want to have a replay review, you want to have a guaranteed pseudo-cast where I kind of focus on you and talk about you, if you want to feed that narcissistic ego inside of you, fuck you, pay me, give me money, and I will do it. Now, as more torpedo bombers fly out of the base of Lieutenant General Fluffy, the death throes of the navy of Thurnus Haley coming down. The T2 HQ goes down. The other factories soon to follow. And Thurnus is going to have to come up with a secondary strategy. He has his comm trying to walk over to the base of Lieutenant General Fluffy, but they've almost completely lost Navy. Lieutenant General Fluffy now going heavily into the Navy. He's gotten to T3. He's going with sub-hunters. So sub-hunters have a very interesting play style. If you are watching this and you haven't played FAF in a long time, a few years ago, they changed the sub-hunters and the way it works. They have the highest range, but they outright lose if they are within range of the same mass of T1 subs. So in general, you have to play them very far back. You have to play them as kind of a slower, more range-abusing kind of thing. It's kind of like having sniper bots, but in the water. So he's going to need to micro these quite intensively, and that might be difficult with him managing 2 bases, but we'll have to keep an eye on it. He's just bringing them in. I don't think there's enough torpedo launching units here to really threaten this at the moment, but this just requires them to start building T1 subs and they can deal with it. The question is, do they know that? It's a 1001, it's a 1000 and a 1200. You need subs to deal with it. Coopers also work. The one non-sub unit. Some destroyers, like the Salem, with the pretty decent torpedo array that it has, can deal with it as well. But overall, these T3 sub-hunters doing quite well for themselves. Seems as though Thurnus Haley's economy, though, is collapsing. Thurnus Haley has kind of just been... he's been... What's the word? He's been abdicated from his position. He's given up the throne of this western side of the southern island, but he's also been relegated to kind of being a secondary air player behind Lieutenant General Fluffy. An interesting play here could be Lieutenant General Fluffy handing over this base that formerly belonged to Seneca Boa and letting Thurnus Haley build up his own navy on this eastern side. I'm sure Thurnus Haley wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it, but I'm sure they're in call talking about it, trying to figure out the best play. These sub-hunters are going to be doing quite well for themselves as they've managed to kill off quite a bit. A lot of them reaching close to being at 1 vet. The comm of Bernie unfortunately never reached 5 vet. It got so close, only 900 mass away from 5 vet. But close only counts with horseshoes and hand grenades, and torpedoes are not on that list. Even though they should be, they kind of are. They're like underwater, not hand grenades, underwater machine. It's an underwater grenade launcher. There we go. That's what a torpedo is. Not even in the slightest. Torpedoes are much more complicated than that. But hey, fuck you. Torpedo bomber is still being used. Seems that air has gotten a little bit more of a focus now, as both sides producing more ASF. I think the ASF lead is currently in the hands of February, but Lieutenant General Fluffy may not know that, as February is cloaking all of his Gemini. If he has the power for it, that's fine and dandy, but does seem like a large power expenditure, especially when they're just sitting over the base at the moment. And we're kind of getting into that stage of the game where players need to make very big decisions and commit to things. The worst thing you can do in late game situations is waffle about and be indecisive. You need to make decisions, you need to commit to them, and if you make the wrong decision, sure, you may lose faster, but it's better than just sitting there and not making any decision. You need to decide, am I committing to a specific strategy? Am I going, like, is Lieutenant General Fluffy going to commit heavily to the Yathsau spam and get himself out a lot of these T3 sub-hunters in order to kill off a lot of the Navy, focus on naval control? Is he going to go ahead and focus on air? He can theoretically do both as long as he ecos well enough, but doing nothing is your enemy. There's always something you could be optimizing whenever you're at this late in the game. Seems as though Thurnus has managed to get T2 on the comm. He's kind of just sitting over here, which is a bit of a problem. A lot of torpedo bombers now flying out for Lieutenant General Fluffy, trying to whittle down this Navy. Bulwark shield boat's going to mean a lot of this damage is going to be negated, but definitely not all of it. Does kill off one of the bulwarks. Another one may be soon to follow. Gonna continue to try and do things. Is this a Shift G command? No, it does. It just seems like he's letting them auto-target, trying to just use brute force to deal with the Navy via air. And on the eastern side, there's a ton of sub-hunters, and the comm of Bernie is gonna die. Oh my gosh, that was so close to being a dead player. These Yathsau submarine hunters going to be a huge threat to be dealt with. They're going to outrange everything. The important thing, though, is he needs to keep his T3 naval production online and alive. He has a lot of assistance, about to have a battleship out on the field. And I think that's going to be our first battleship we're going to be seeing out. We do have a battleship on the way now for Patman, who is doing a little bit better economically. Overall economies, Lieutenant General Fluffy and Dave doing the best. February a little bit behind that, as a snipe came out. I can't believe I missed that. A snipe came out onto Thurnus Haley. He wasn't contributing particularly much. He was just trying to eco horde and get back into the game. I wonder what they sniped with. It wasn't torpedo bombers. I'm guessing Thurnus got either killed by Navy somehow, or it was some sort of a Corsair snipe or T3 bomber snipe, all of which reasonable things. If they were sniping him with T3 bombers, I don't know why they didn't just go for Fluffy's comm instead, but Fluffy is getting a few upgrades on his comm right now. He's getting T3 now. He's under some naval siege, which is going to be a little bit difficult for him to deal with. And it seems as though, where did all of his sub-hunters go? Did they get killed off by torpedo bombers? I look away from one thing for a second and it just dies. Am I just crazy? Yeah, he only has one T3 sub left. Seems as though all of his submarines died right here. They're all the 1,200-ish wrecks, so that's unfortunate for Lieutenant General Fluffy. His main base is now being sieged down, and it looks as though Lieutenant General Fluffy and Team 2, who I thought would have a huge advantage with how much they play this map with the experience on Lieutenant General Fluffy and Thurnus Haley, it seems as though they're collapsing. He still has T2 mexes in the main base, 4 of them upgrading at a time. I'm not sure if he can afford it. It does seem as though he can. But those 4 T3 mexes are not going to pay themselves off unless Dave here is able to protect him. Dave showing up with a sizable T2 force, but is that going to be enough? We have battleships now out on the field. Multiple battleships out for Lieutenant General Fluffy. I think he needs to respond to these torpedo bombers. He can't be losing battleships to torp bombers. That is not acceptable. And as soon as he sees them, he does send them out. Gonna be a solid third of the health on that battleship. Gonna go down almost immediately. SMD now going up for multiple players. Large hive banks now going up for Dave, who has the second strongest economy. Overall, Team 2 is still massively ahead on economy. Still over double and nearly 300,000 mass generation lead. But in general, just seemingly not getting a handle on this Navy, at least on the western side, is really punishing for them. There's so much area that they've now lost to this naval spam out from Patman and America. There's a ton of ASF in the air now for Lieutenant General Fluffy. And over here to the east, Bernie, his comm got to 5 vet, everybody. I guess he helped kill off a Yatsau of some kind. So that comm killing off 11,000 mass worth of stuff for a relatively cheap upgrade. I mean, he's, let's see, can we just check the cost of that? He's killed off 11,000 mass. He spent 650 plus 1,500, and I guess you can include T2, but I won't. Plus 1,500, so he spent 2,000 mass to kill 12,000 mass. That's really efficient. Bernie pinging over here, attack move. A bunch of land factories now being queued up by America. America going to be going for a land spam, invading the islands, making a D-Day landing, in fact, as the UEF Navy reigns supreme over here. The mass UEF going to be able to cause many issues, as the Seraphim battleship line is getting bigger and bigger. It's going to become a problem. These players throwing a lot of units and a lot of mass at their problems. A huge mass field now over here. Over 100,000 mass on such a small screen. 80,000 here, but it's just constantly growing. The players who can get a large amount of build power over here for reclaim are probably going to decide the game. Team 1 can be this far down on mass generation. If they get to this reclaim field and just decide to throw it into something, it's going to work quite well for themselves. And I accidentally turned on the FPS counter there in the top left. Sorry if that was annoying. And over here to the east, there is a ton of fighting going on between these players. Seems as though Bernie is trying to put pressure on, trying to relieve some of the pressure from this large group of battleships being produced by Lieutenant General Fluffy. Trying to make things a bit easier. Lieutenant General Fluffy now almost to 700 mass a second. His ally almost to 300. And all the players on Team 1 not even... Some of them getting close to 200, but none of them near the eco of these two players. But an overall a 300 mass generation lead for Team 2. Lieutenant General Fluffy is putting on his carry pants, and he's really trying. This Neptune-class battlecruiser, I think, was a bad build. It doesn't do well into battleships due to the range. And even if you do get in range, I don't think it can trade effectively. It has so much less HP and so much less pure alpha damage. It's much better for dealing with T2 and T1 units than battleships, but in a straight fight with battleships, you lose. The battleships out from Lieutenant General Fluffy now turning around. Bernie has gotten his wish. He's gotten the attention of Lieutenant General Fluffy. And now Lieutenant General Fluffy is going to be dealing with that. A nuke launcher now on the way for Lieutenant General Fluffy. And I don't believe there's any anti-nuke built up for anybody on Team 1, and affording it would be a little bit of an ask right now. No player on a huge economy able to just afford to spam one out. A couple of those T3 mass extractors did end up surviving. He sent engineers out of factories on attack orders to try and get access to this reclaim field. And overall with reclaim, February, America, and Patman are leading it, but Lieutenant General Fluffy is going to start massively increasing his presence with that, as a ton of whalers over here trying to shut down this T1 land spam. Is there going to be a response out from February or out from any of these players to deal with this? All of these whalers are going to be able to deal massive damage and deal with these factories and this land spam quite easily. They need to have a response, and they need to have it now. I guess mass T1 anti-air, mobile anti-air could work. You can see where multiple players are trying to queue up factories at the same spots, so it looks a little wonky. Factories and buildings. Both Patman and America trying to do this themselves. All of the ASF out from February show up over here, and it seems as though Lieutenant General Fluffy just doesn't have very many ASF left. His comm is trying to run to the safety of Dave over here. He doesn't really have much to deal with this other than shields. That's his only defense. He has shields and maybe some AA. He has some T3 AA provided by these Myrmidons built up by Dave. Half health with one pass. He needs to be able to deal with this. And he needs to get the cruisers in range to deal with the torps, but I'm not sure if this is going to happen. Corsairs coming in for a second pass. Lieutenant General Fluffy not dodging a critical mistake, down to 1,000 HP. This Corsair snipe may be successful. Only a couple more Corsairs need to get perfect passes off. But the Corsairs are going to go down, and a second shield's going to finish relatively soon. And another nuke launcher on the way. One nuke launcher done. Heavily assisted by Lieutenant General Fluffy. His battleship line now moving in to deal with Bernie, who's now not quite at 12,000 mass killed. If he has Yathsows, it's time to just send them over here. And he doesn't have the air to deal with these torpedo bombers. The torpedo bombers are going to take a very long time to kill battleships. Battleships have so much health. It is insanely difficult to kill them, but still, it's going to slowly happen as long as there's no anti-air. Cruisers are going to need to come in to deal with this. He needs a lot more cruisers to deal with all of these torpedo bombers. This western side is, the whalers were cleaned up, and there's still a ton of reclaim. I mean, just right here, 30,000 reclaim. And these players are going to start building up UEF land factories once again, going to continue to try and build up their land presence over on this western side. Maybe even get more going on in terms of the spam that's going to be coming towards the base of Lieutenant General Fluffy and the base of Dave. Lieutenant General Fluffy, if you are just looking at this right here, you'd almost think that he started in this bottom right-hand corner. The dude has nothing left of his main base. He is the nomad of this game. He's kind of just sitting here doing his own thing. He's not really he's not really in his main base. He's definitely moved. He was almost a homeless man, but he found a new home. The retail market, it was in shambles. He found an absolute steal on some property in East Salamaris, and he took it. He capitalized, and he's made a good decision, and now he's secure. He has that equity. And I'm going to stop making jokes about home ownership because they make me depressed, and because I'm never going to own one. Unless you join the Patreon or channel membership today. Make me rich. Lose your money. I'll spend it better. Just kidding. I love you, and I love all the support I get from this channel. One of the best things I've ever done is create the YouTube channel. Over here, Neptune's trying to come in, going to be able to kill off a lot of build power, but these battleships going to come back and just swat all of this down. There's so many battleships now that you need basically the same amount of battleships to deal with this. The torpedo bombers, they're not even being opposed at this point, but these torpedo bombers are just able to have free reign, and they're even having trouble killing off the battleships. So in general, he just has hundreds of thousands of health worth of battleships here, and they're just going to be destroying these naval units en masse. Units are dying left and right. Lieutenant General Fluffy holding a stalwart defense as he's building a nuke. The first nuke is about to be done. Gonna have to keep an eye on it. I'm gonna just go ahead and start tracking it now. And that way we can look at it. We'll just stay zoomed out for a little bit. A lot of land forces now coming out from these factories over here, putting a lot of pressure down. There's some T2 there's some T2 point defense over here out from Dave that's going to help out a little bit. And there's a large scout wave. I wonder if they have any kind of snipe in mind. But all of the naval production for Bernie has been shut down, and a lot of the mass generation has been as well. So Bernie's going to have trouble spending his mass. And overall, we're going to probably see a nuke launched very soon. An anti-nuke has been built, but hasn't completed its first missile between America and Patman, both of them heavily assisting it. And this nuke launcher is already, it's going to launch as soon as it's done, and it's already up to like 99%. So we're going to get a cinematic look at this nuke. And here it comes. Nuke launching out of the base of Lieutenant General Fluffy. And gonna be landing somewhere to the other side. Seems like there's a ping right here. I think it's gonna be going for the base of February. And that's gonna be a huge blow to the production of air for Team 1. Team 1 probably going to lose the air HQ. I'd be surprised if that wasn't there. I don't think this SMD is loaded. And that's going to be devastating for Team 1. They're going to lose a ton of their T3 air production until you can get another HQ online. He has the air grids back here, which can definitely help, but also took out some of the core infrastructure that he was using. Alright, and that's our first nuke of the game, and the first major happening in a little bit. It's been kind of a stalemate for a while. Another nuke launched out from the nuke launcher built out by Dave. And this is going to be landing over here. Is the anti-nuke loaded? That's a question. It's not. So the naval production for Patman and some of the production for America in February going to be going down. And this is going to be a devastating bomb. Almost finished battleship's going to be dying. And that's going to be an absolute travesty for Team 1. As they're losing their air and naval production right now. They still have their economies relatively intact, but that's not gonna be enough as the nuke lands and destroys everything over here. The nuclear onslaught being produced by Team 2 is very significant. We have a large embankment of Cerberus. Whoa, did not mean to do that. Over here, firing down on the units out from America and Patman. Tower defense is indeed the name of the game, apparently. Even going to be killing off mass extractors that were quite optimistically built up by Patman in America. Hold the line! And now we have to see what the response is. There's one anti-nuke on the field, one SMD. It's loaded, but there's two nuke launchers, both of which going to be very close to finishing nukes, like right now. Bernie requesting air cover. He's built up a ton of Corsairs. How many Corsairs does he have? 29. Gonna be going for a snipe once again. My guess is Lieutenant General Fluffy, but at this point, a snipe simply will not be effective enough to deal with what these players have. Even Dave can probably finish this game out with just the pure amount of nukes the double nuke launchers he has and the amount of eco he has. He just has to continue to throw nukes at his opponent. And on top of that, all of this Navy out for Lieutenant General Fluffy that's just unassailable. Mass cruisers causing so many issues for February. This is looking to get a little bit desperate for Team 1. I was talking about it for most of the game, but that economic advantage held by Lieutenant General Fluffy in particular, and of course Dave doing quite well on economy himself, it's kind of beating them down. They've produced over 500,000 more mass this game. And they've spent it, and that's just gonna be a difficult thing to deal with. Like the economic, you can have a larger economy and it not do much for you, but the longer you have this huge economic lead, the better it's gonna go for you. As the nuke lands over here in Bernie's territory, taking out a large proportion of his stuff. Mass Corsair snipe on the way. I don't know who this is going for, but these are not going to be successful. Very unlikely that this Corsair snipe achieves anything. All of the Corsairs pretty much dying before dropping their payload. And that's going to be the end of Bernie's base and Bernie's snipes. There's still a massive defense being set up over here. It's a fluffy nuclear turtle. A very rare species, but a very adept survivor. Another nuke being launched. This time going for the air grid of February. There's no way he has an anti-nuke loaded. There's no way this ends well for Team 1. Team 1 down. They've lost in every. They've all but lost at this point. They achieved naval supremacy and they killed Thurnis Haley. But that internal caster question: at what cost? They killed the man, but they didn't kill the economies. They didn't shut down Fluffy. As Bernie or Patman control Ks, Bernie sits in the water getting T3 with very little economy. Teleporter on the way for February, and America sitting here still desperately trying to put up a defense against the naval units of Lieutenant General Fluffy. February decides to control K. He's decided it's hopeless. And America, I'm sure, does not have much time left. The fall of America is imminent. And we're going to speed up as we reach the end of this. Thank you to all of my channel members and Patreons. If you want to support me financially, you can always consider subscribing yourself. Thank you to the beautiful people on the Discord. Please consider checking it out. There's a link below every single video. And thank you for watching. This has been a wonderful cast, and there's going to be more of them coming very soon. You all are amazing. This channel is by far one of the coolest things I get to do, and I get to do it all on my time, and it's a pretty great time. So yeah, if you want to play games with me, please join my Discord, of course. I play games way more often than I did in the past, and I'm going to just leave you with this, as battleships are going to rain down their fiery doom upon the calm of America.